All right, good evening, everybody. This is the Upper Darby Township Planning Commission for January 12th, 2026. Everybody's present. We have a new member, Craig, so welcome. Appreciate it. Appreciate you helping us out and joining, so looking forward to working with you. We have to do a rework. Okay, do you have to do these positions one at a time, or? Yeah. Okay, all right, so we need nominations for chair.
I nominate Jeff Roken to be the chair of the Planning Commission.
Okay, we need a second.
I second.
Approved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate the vote of confidence. Need a nomination for vice chair.
I nominate Debbie Newfong.
Second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And I need a nomination for secretary. I nominate Lee Jordan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that completes the reorganization. I need approval for our minutes from December. So I need a motion to accept. You weren't here.
Sorry. Sorry. Motion to accept. Or
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
aye.
Aye. No communications and bills. Community and Economic Development Report. So, welcome, Rita.
Happy New Year to the Commission. Rita LaRue, Director of Community and Economic Development for Upper Darby Township. I'd like to start with an improvement on a business process that CED is working on with license and inspections and the finance department. You may remember from when I reported on some of the issues we had reaching out to businesses about the plastics reduction surveys, that we got back a lot of data where we sort of thought the way that businesses are reporting what kind of business they are might not be correct or wasn't correctly entered into the system over many decades. So working with the team and with eCollect, who does the business license and business tax registration for the township, we are adding some fields to the form that businesses fill out annually. And one of those important additions is going to be asking the business to say what kind of type they are, business type. So we'll be able to understand from the business, fresh start, are you retail, are you food and beverage, professional services, contractor or trade services, rental property operations, and then other business types. We didn't want to go in first year with a huge list. So we're going to start in those categories. And of course, this is important so that we as a township know who our businesses are. And also because just over time, the township probably lost track of some businesses and they might not be getting registered every year. So there is a lost revenue issue happening as well. So that is going to be something that will be very good for the township to collect over time. So we better understand. Okay. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I have a question. So you're not doing an actual audit. So you're not going back to the businesses. Is this moving forward? That you're changing how they register. So you'll have those questions, but the existing businesses, how are you handling that?
Well, every business has to register every year.
Okay, so you've updated the form.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. As I said, there are a lot of businesses that haven't been paying the registration fee every year and probably not their taxes. Again, over time, antiquated systems, some of this information was lost. So this is our first step. And there'll be different ways of going out and understanding what businesses are in our community. The Small Business Empowerment Center is going to start late winter. So we're actually going to have boots on the ground on the business corridors going in and doing inventory of those businesses as well. Thank you. Good news on the grant from the Commonwealth Financing Authority, the 3620 Garrett Road Public Space Project. That's at 3620 Garrett and Edmonds. may have stopped noticing that there is a asphalt triangle lot surrounded by a cyclone fence. It's been there a while. We did about a year ago, it was November of 2024, put in a grant request to the Commonwealth to do a public space. So that plan included outdoor dining, benches, landscaping, pavers, signage, trash, receptacles. Also looking at a system that would address some of the stormwater issues there and create a low-maintenance surface. As we move along, we still have some funding that we need to get for this project. It was estimated at $500,000. The grant award was for $200,000. So we've got some time to get that funding together and then also go to the corridor, to the residents, to the businesses, to visitors, and get community feedback on what they would like to see in this public space. Any questions on the Garrett Road public space? And then another public space, meeting or so ago, I introduced to the commission the fitness studio court that is slated for 7,000 Walnut Street. That is fully funded. We had a $50,000 grant from the National Fitness Campaign, and the rest of the project funding is coming from our community development block grants from Housing and Urban Development. And it's pretty much a turnkey operation as far as the studio fitness court itself is prefabricated. It's installed by the township. It's a fairly large lot, so we're going to leave some space untouched so that the township can decide what they want there. Do they want more greening and paths? Do they want, this is one of my favorites, a small outdoor amphitheater? I would love to see that in the township somewhere someday. Maybe not an amphitheater on that site, but some sort of, performance space where people can gather. We do have an opportunity through the National Fitness Campaign to customize the artwork. The court has a divider in the middle. One side is fitness, the other side is an open space for dance, yoga, fitness classes. We opted for the package where we'll customize the art. And the way we're going to do that is do an local artist campaign. We're hoping for the artists to be as local as possible. And we will ask the community to be part of that selection process, to be part of what that design is. Would love to see it reflect Upper Darby in the way the community wants to see that happen. And that is slated to be done by probably late summer, at maybe even a little sooner, maybe early summer of 2026. Any questions on that or anything else from my world?
Yeah, I had mentioned at the council meeting concerns I had with, 69th Street now that H&M is also moving out. And I'm not sure, I think they probably may have closed by now. So I was down there a couple weeks ago. I mean, there really is not much down there anymore. And so any update on the Tower Theater? I mean, are we making any progress in that area?
Well, first I will say, you'll remember the Urban Land Institute Technical Assistance Panel from last year. We've been working with them on that report and really wanting to make sure it's going to serve the downtown community, the master plan funding opportunities. That's about to come out. And there are ideas in there for the Tower Theater. I do talk to Live Nation. They're always cordial. They have no interest in selling the Tower Theater. I've heard that more than once. They recognize it for being a valuable piece of history and of their portfolio, but they do not have any immediate plans about what's going to happen there.
Are they using it now?
They are not.
They're not using it, right? There's no
It's
contract.
closed. Yeah.
Why are they, what's their motive to keep it? We know.
The Tower Theater?
Yeah.
Why do they want to keep it?
Yeah.
I mean, I think when you start to see economic development in an area and you've got an anchor property like that, I think we've seen this a little bit with Ashkenazi that owns the Sears building. You just hold on to it to see what's going to happen and to see if that value will increase. I also think the Tower Theater's got a huge amount of history in a very, special corner of the world. And I think they are sensitive to that.
Yeah, because as we know, like Lansdowne, we'll take that, once the theater opened and they're having performances, I mean, Lansdowne's coming alive. Restaurants,
Yes.
things are starting to happen. So
Yep.
we need to draw people, into our area, into 69th Streets. And when that happens, you start getting new restaurants, people start to come.
Absolutely.
And like we talked about before, you have Cobb's Creek, you have the golf club, which the restaurant's open already. I mean, it's already starting. We're gonna get a lot of foot traffic and people.
Yep. Yep.
So,
It's unfortunate about H&M. They've closed over 200 stores across the country. They're repositioning. As we look at the opportunities for 69th Street, I think it is around entertainment and restaurants and interactive experiences, probably less retail, still some shopping. We'd like to make sure we have those small businesses in there, maybe a few anchor retail opportunities. But it's, I think, really about going to downtown Upper Darby because there's stuff to do. Right. So
you can
yeah.
talk to Netflix. Maybe they'll open up satellite here in Prussia.
Who knows?
All right, anything else? All right, thank you, Rita.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Before we move on, there's no reviews this month, right? So, okay. Any public comment this month? Anybody? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to new business. We have staff educational presentation. Is that this? Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. This is going to be our second Planning Commission learning session, which is my new official name for it. So last time we had talked a little bit about parks and, what we look for in parks and maintenance. And one of the things that we talked about as being, kind of super influential in how we create public space and really the township's best bang for their buck, right, is having developers do those plans and do those parks and really having the planning commission, right, help shape land development, subdivision and land development plans. Well, this is kind of the life cycle of that subdivision land development plan. We thought that it was important for the planning commission to not only understand their role in it and what they do, but also kind of the wider picture for everything that goes into a subdivision land development, the different thoughts and feelings and viewpoints and internal and external reviews that happen, so that you have also a wider understanding of what this process is outside of your small but very important role. Before we get started, I also want to introduce our newest planner, Demetria Monk. She's
Hey,
going to be
Demetria.
joining with us, and will be here when I'm here. All right, so we're going to start off. Demetria's going to take the first couple slides.
Hello, everyone. We'll start with explaining to you guys the Municipal's Planning Code, also known as Act 247. It's basically a statutory uniform planning and land use enabling law for all municipalities and counties within Pennsylvania, excluding Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, who have their own regulations. And it requires local governments to utilize various tools such as comprehensive plan, zoning, subdivision, and land development ordinances, which we'll get into in this presentation, and the planning commission, such as yourselves, to promote and protect the welfare of communities. Next slide. So how do we define a land development and subdivision plan? It's basically the improvement of one or two contiguous lots through the construction of two or more residential homes or one non-residential building. or it's the division or allocation of land or space for the purpose of streets, common areas, leaseholds, condominiums, and more. So as you see in the picture on the slide, we have a parcel that is being subdivided into 2 lots for residential housing. Next slide. Okay. So getting into the timeline, in Act 247, the Municipal Planning Code, Section 508, it gives a timeline process for the subdivision and land development plans. All applications for these plans should be acted upon by the governing body or the planning agency no later than 90 days after the application is filed, following the first meeting after the application is submitted. And then upon decision of or approval or denial of the application, it should be communicated to the applicant no later than 15 days when the decision is made. And Joshua will get into what happens in between these 2 important points of the timeline.
Yeah, and you'll actually see these marked with little clocks in the slides here. So we just wanted to give you, I'm sure you all can read that from your seats. No, and you're not meant to. We'll break it down into each step. But we wanted to give you what this life cycle of a land development or subdivision and land development application looks like, and break it down into the various phases, as we see it. So I've kind of shown that a couple different ways here. So up in the top corner, we've got what I call the land development life cycle, which starts right with the pre-application meetings and getting everything to that Act 247. Then what I call the local review, the external review, recording preparations, and then finally the recording. So this is everything that happens between idea in the very top corner and building permits at the very bottom. Most developers think you come in and you start with the building permits, and it's a long road from there. But it's important that we understand, right, and where our role is in this and, right, how we can make an impact. And just for reference, I have the Upper Darby Township Planning Commission highlighted in red in the middle there. So I'll highlight that, and then these colors, it's a little bit lighter on the screen than I was anticipating, but these colors also correspond with each phase. So just diving in a little bit deeper. Right, we're going to start at the very beginning. So pre to Act 47. So a developer has an idea, they want to build, they want to do something. They'll come in and they'll meet with staff. So we'll sit down, we'll talk about what they want. They'll ask us what we want, hopefully. And then we'll come together and we'll ask them to provide some sort of draft sketch plan. That sketch plan will show us the setbacks, it'll show us, the main ideas. It won't be too detailed. And it's generally about 1 page long. And that's generally what the plan that they will use for their first zoning hearing board meeting. Now, it's not always going to need zoning. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on the plan. So if it's applicable, it will go to there. If it passes zoning, if they get their approvals, and generally this is kind of the big stuff, use, parking, setbacks. Those are generally the big things that they'll want to know before they invest in a full land development plan design. Because remember, that is a long process with engineers that's going to result in an expensive plan. So if they can't do it, they generally want to know by the zoning hearing board before they go ahead and develop an entire land development plan. And then from that moment, when they have the plan, they can apply for the Act 247. And that 90-day process that Dimitri was talking about begins there and signified with that little clock. And like last time, I'll just take time in between just because it's going to be a lot to see if you have any questions about the pre-application stages. Yeah.
So where do they apply for that? 247, is that the county?
So it's going to be, they'll apply here to us, but as you'll see, part of that is going to be a dual review process where we sign off and give it to the county. But we'll get into that a little bit more. You'll see there's going to be a lot of eyes on a plan. Any other before we keep going? All right, great. So now they've applied for the Act 247. So immediately, what we're going to do is what I like to call local review. So right, from our point of view, Upper Darby staff will take a look at the plan, and we're going to be looking at a lot of different things. We're going to be looking at zoning. We're going to be looking at the subdivision and land development ordinance. And then we're also going to be looking at, right, how does this fit into the community? What's existing? What's there? These are all things that we'll type up and then put into our planning commission recommendation letter, which is where you guys would either approve, deny, make changes, or ask the developer to make changes before coming back. So that's generally what you'll see on those plans. But it's not just being reviewed by the Upper Darby staff, it's also being reviewed by the Delaware County Planning Commission. And they're going to be looking at similar things, right? Also, is it consistent with the county's plans and the county's direction? They're going to be looking at the zoning, then the general transportation as well. If it's applicable, it will go to the Shade Tree Commission. It will always go through the Upper Darby engineer. It will also go through a specific traffic engineer, which can be part of the same engineer, but isn't always. And then it will also go to the Upper Darby Fire Department for their review and comments. So what's nice is we'll take all of those reviews, and I'm going to skip the second zoning hearing board for a second, and we will compile them and present that to Upper Darby Township Council. And they'll make a decision via resolution based off of the recommendations of all of these organizations. Now, the only reason I say I put the second zoning hearing board here is because as part of this land development review process, we'll usually find some additional things that need zoning. So they either have to make the plan fit or they realize that they need additional zoning. And usually it's smaller setback stuff. It's not usually, right, your big, uses or, maybe it's a parking spot here and there. Oh, we're actually going to be able to fit 30 parking spots instead of 35 like we thought we were, when we redesigned the building a little bit. So you're generally going to need a second one, not always, if it's applicable. Again, we gather all of that and give it to Upper Darby Township Council via resolution for the next step. And again, this is the time where you have your chance to make a comment. And there's a lot of back and forth here, right? This is the chance to really go back and forth with the developer to talk about what you want to see, what you would like to see in your designs, and how it connects to the community. Do you guys have any questions about this part? Yeah, no, you're good.
So is there somewhere that we can go to see where the what applications are currently in the queue? Because, for example, I'm talking about the car wash.
Yeah.
So that doesn't need zoning approval. I
Mhm.
mean, that would change. So where would residents go to see what's getting looked at right now?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, once an Act 247 is applied for, right, that becomes public. And that way it can be presented right to the Planning Commission. But until they apply, there's really, right, we don't technically have it. I mean, they said they, maybe they've had a conversation with us. We've probably, right, had that informal meeting. We've probably been to zoning. But until we get it, you never know, plans change, things happen. So yeah, until we have that Act 247, there's nothing formal that we can have. And I don't think there's any public trackers, but that would be an interesting idea so far as if it were legal, to have that information out there. It's certainly something we could take a look at, just where are all these projects and, what's, maybe some sort of web page or something for land developments.
Okay, so right now,
It's a neat thought.
when it's public, there's really nowhere to kind of go to see what.
Until they formally apply, right?
Until they formally apply, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So nothing.
Yeah, because I mean, they could, go bankrupt the next day and then nothing, nothing comes away. Or, I was at a different municipality and they had plans from, this was in 2016, but they had plans from 2008 that they were bringing back because, hey, they finally have money again. Things happen where, there's cycles. The economy is a cycle. All right. Anything else for this section? We'll keep going ahead. So next we get to the section called internal review. So assuming that council makes a decision where they would like it to go forward, this is when we start to look at our agencies above us. So we'll start to get the revised plans, make sure that the plans are compliant with all of the comments that we had just done in that lower section, but then also that they're compliant with FEMA if it's in a floodplain, that they're getting their sewer approval from the Department of Environmental Protection, usually through a mailer application and then a planning module. Making sure that their ENS plans are approved from the Delaware County Conservation District to make sure that during construction, right, they're not letting any sediment and pollution into the creeks and streams and whatnot. And then, of course, if they are entering onto a state road, a highway occupancy permit from PennDOT. Which one do you think takes the longest? Just kidding, it's all of them. So yeah, this is usually a fairly long stage as we kind of send it out for what I call external review. So at the end of those, we'll hopefully have approvals from each of those agencies and updated plans based off of those comments.
So long meaning months or years? I mean.
Months usually. Yeah, it's usually months. I'd say, I mean, in total, right? We have 90 days from, right, the application submission to get through this whole process to Upper Darby Council resolution one way or another, right? We've got 90 days to do that. But then after that, you know, it's as long as it needs to be done. So yeah, it's generally a couple months for this process. Yeah, 3 to 6, I'd say. It also depends how well it's done, right? If we're going back and forth with PennDOT 3 times, that takes a little longer. Oh, and I'm sorry, any other questions about this external process review? So again, we're kind of getting now the states look at it and the counties look at it from different perspectives, right? From traffic, from E&S, from FEMA, from sewer. All right, so next to last step is getting it ready for recording. Once we've get all of our approvals, we can start the recording process. So generally the applicant will submit to us a plan that is updated with all of those comments, and then they will begin to get the final engineer sign off. The planning commission will review, this is the time where I'll go back and I will make sure that, all the comments that the planning commission made had been answered. All the comments that the county planning commission made had been answered by this plan at this point in time. And if there was any extra zoning hearing boards that, had come to light, or any zoning issues, they had gone to the zoning hearing board and gotten approval at that time. And then, of course, we'll also work with our solicitor to prepare the agreements. There's generally 3 types of agreements that are part of a land development plan. There's the land development plan agreement itself, the operations and maintenance agreement, which is generally focused on stormwater management facilities, and then the financial security agreement, which generally ends with an escrow and a letter of credit. So the escrow is for the township to do administrative functions such as site plan review and inspections and being reimbursed from that. And then the letter of credit is to protect us in case the developer goes belly up without completing their site improvements. So all of that comes together in preparation for the recording process, which is our last step of the puzzle here. So for the recording process, the plans are formally signed by the developer and their engineers. Then they're brought here and they're signed by the township, specifically our engineer, our chief administrative officer, our mayor, and then they're signed by the Delaware County Planning Commission, confirming that they've seen it and have done their review. And then they're taken to the assessor's office so that they can be taxed correctly. And then finally to the recorder of deeds. One of those copies of the recorded plan is brought back to the township. That's for us to keep and for us to, to be able to hold for record keeping purposes. And then from that point on, they're ready to go through the building permit process. So I know it's a lot. I'm sure you don't have any questions, but if you did, I'm here to go through and we can go back and kind of hash through any of that maybe didn't make sense or you needed a little bit more explanation on. But in general, you are a small but important part of this very large process that brings together a lot of different viewpoints, a lot of different professionals, and a lot of different voices. So questions? Make sure you use your mic.
Yeah. The scope of these projects, is it, it's like beyond like a private residence. So is it like apartment buildings up to commercial?
So as Demetria was kind of pointing out in her section for what makes, what crosses that line to be a land development. For residential, it's 2 or more units, So if you want to just build one single family house on a plot of land, all you're going to do is make sure the zoning's okay and then go get your building permits.
Okay.
If you want to do 2 houses, then that's where we would pick up into a land development, And then if you wanted to do anything commercial, including changing the perimeter of the building, that's going to kick off a land development.
Okay, that makes sense.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Josh. Very good.
course.
Thanks, Dimitri. Next, we have our 2025 annual report introduction and timeline. So we did this last year too, right? If I recall. All right.
This is going to be the same as last year. I just wanted to give the board an opportunity. If there was anything that they wanted to see in the report, we're going to be starting to create that, and we will have that ready for you at the February meeting for you to vote on so that we can get it to council in their March meeting as mandated by the municipality's planning code.
Okay. So you'll prepare the draft that'll summarize everything we did last year and
Yeah, it'll be exactly the same as last year, but if there's anything additional that you were interested in, we can do that as well. And again, you can also, I just wanted to introduce it, get you to start thinking about it. You're more than welcome to email me with any ideas or anything, or if you want to discuss amongst yourselves, anything that you'd want to see, we can get to work on that sooner rather than later. But and I just wanted to bring it to the board to begin.
Just thanks for keeping an eye on that timeline with March for us. Forget about that.
anything else? I think that's it. So I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. That's it. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.